finally, Manchester United get a win in the Premier League. You know, it was a drama. It was full of drama. It was full of controversy. It was relief, basically, especially talking from my last video, it was relief. Manchester United finally have, you know, the first win of the season, and it came in the most dramatic fashion possible. I mean, a stoppage time, Bruno Fernandes penalty, you know, his 99th goal for the club, which sealed a chaotic 3-2 win over Burnley at Old Trafford. Yeah, I was so excited for Bruno Fernandes to have got the his 99th goal for Man United, and hopefully he gets his 100th goal for Manchester United. So thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you're watching this, please do like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't have to miss anything as it relates to Manchester United. We're, you know, building up to deadline day and everything. I'm trying to plan a show for deadline day, but let's see how that goes. So basically, you know, Man United got a win, a chaotic win, you know, after basically what could have been a week of misery, drawing to Tottenham, drawing to Fulham in a disappointing way, and eventually losing or drawing to Grimsby Town and losing on penalties to Grimsby Town and crashing out of the Carabao Cup. You know, the Reds have delivered a response that was much needed. I mean, but it wasn't without its roller coaster moments, ups and downs, you know. But let's dive into some of the 5 biggest takeaways from the match, you know, plus 3 bonus insights that, you know, we could actually use to really tell the story of the game. So the first one that we're going to talk about basically is Bruno's redemption arc. You know, after last week's penalty miss at Fulham, Bruno Fernandes stepped up again at stoppage time with all the pressure mounting. I could see him feeling a bit of pressure, but obviously he can handle it. He has been in this kind of situation before, so the weight of Old Trafford on his shoulders, he basically delivered, you know, a bottom corner ice cold redemption, bottom corner ice cold penalty that signified that the redemption is complete. It was more than just a penalty. It was a captain's response, a leader refusing to let his team stumble again before the international break. So, I mean, it's something that we need to talk about, especially for Bruno Fernandes. It was simply interesting to see that he took the pressure, the mountain of pressure on his shoulder to try to prepare himself for, you know, what was lying ahead with regards to, you know, taking that penalty. And then I could also be very impressed with his ability to take on that pressure and take the leadership, you know, take leadership of situations from the get-go, right? So I was pretty impressed with Bruno Fernandes. He was orchestrating things. He was creating the most chances. You know, he has created the most chances in the league already for the last 5 seasons consecutively, right? So he can, I mean, he's doing a lot. So yeah, kudos to Bruno. He was the highest rated player for me in the player ratings. If you haven't, go watch the match review. We talked about everything, so it is what it is. We move on to the next one. Takeaway number 2. This feels kind of like a downer for me here. Right now, Cunha setback. Actually, Cunha was taking off injured. Basically, went straight into the dressing room. But what I can see is basically the fact that after the game, he was seen outside Old Trafford walking normally without any issues. So, yeah. Bruno Fernandes, Matheus Cunha basically was walked off the field at 31st minute, and it was a huge blow, but he looked sharp before limping off. At least he had one shot on target, and he went, you know, he showed that Man United had a bit of attacking fluidity, you know, present and all of that in the team and everything in between. We could also talk about his movement. You know, it was missed in the game. It was a bit like, you know, kind of slow. So the build-up was a bit slow. But his absence actually raised big questions for Amorim, like who carries the attacking spark if our new number 10 will be sidelined for a spell. So I'm guessing this is probably going to be a 3-week injury, and he's already doing 2 weeks on international break, so he's probably not even going for international break, just to rest off this one, and then he'll potentially get to the point where maybe he'll miss the derby and then be back in the next game after that. I think that should be the Sunderland game, but it is what it is. So is it going to be out for a long spell? We might never know, but we'll just keep an eye out on that, and I'll keep you posted on all things as it relates to Matheus Cunha and everything Manchester United. So if you haven't already, please do like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Also drop a comment to let me know your thoughts and feelings about these takeaways. We talked about number 1, Bruno Fernandes redemption arc. Number 2, we talked about Cunha, getting off injured and kind of like a setback ahead of the derby that takes place in 2 weeks, September 14th to be precise. Also, number 3, we're going to talk about number 3, and number 3 is the headline act for this game because he was our outlet, and that is Bryan Mbeumo. Basically an instant impact in the team. 2 goals in 2 games now for Bryan Mbeumo. First at Grimsby, and now his first Old Trafford goal, reacting instantly, after Burnley equalized. I think pretty much. I see 14 seconds after the goal, but it's actually 2 minutes after the goal because Burnley scored 55, Mbeumo scored 57. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. I had to watch the second half again to actually get a sense of what is actually going on, and then his directness, his timing, his energy was exactly what United need and what United had been lacking for years. And if he keeps this form, he could be one of the most important signings of the summer. And I'm seeing a potential for Man United to try out something, seeing as Cunha is out, probably Mbeumo and Ahmad at the 10s, or let me not just think too far, let's move on. Another takeaway from the game was the VAR controversy and the refereeing drama. This game had it all. It overturned penalties, crowd announcements, shirt pulls, semi-automated offsides, twice VAR overturned huge calls, once denying Mount a penalty and later awarding the decisive spot kick to Bruno Fernandes after Jadon Anthony dragged Ahmad back. Love it or hate it, VAR shaped the match, and Old Trafford certainly made their feelings clear. And if we're talking about the VAR controversy, we could go on and on talking about different things, different situations that led to that VAR controversy. But Mount's penalty was supposed to be a penalty because obviously Mount had the head start, and Kyle Walker kind of had his arm leaning on Mount and pulled his shirt from the side while Mount pulled the other. So it's more like Mount was already ahead of him and then he fouled him. I think Mount also went off with an injury after the first half. I hope it's not a long-term one, because if it is a long-term one, we might need one more player in mid, but it is what it is. We might need to sign one more midfielder or 2, and then the goalkeeper as well. We need to finalize that goalkeeper deal. Sene Lammens, where we have not heard anything progressed in that situation. Obviously, it looks like Bryan has pushed Onana down the pecking order. So, and I think maybe Ruben Amorim trusts Bryan more than Onana, because obviously at Grimsby Town, Andre Onana could have led the team from behind, but it is what it is. Then we go to number 5, defensive frailties, which is the main thing that we have that had made us concede 4 goals in 4 games. 4 goals in 3 games. In 3 Premier League games, we've conceded 4 goals. And then in 4 games overall, all competitions, we conceded 6 goals. And we've scored 2, 1 plus 3. That is 6 goals. So, considered 6 goals, we scored 6 goals. It is what it is anyway. 6-6. So, defensive frailties. still, still evident. We can see that, yes, we won. United scored 3 goals, but conceding twice against Burnley, a newly promoted side, is a warning. Both goals came from sloppy defending. Obviously, we could talk on and on about those defending spaces and positioning, but they came from sloppy defending and second balls not being dealt with. And if United want to push up the table, basically these lapses must be cut out quickly. It's a must win, but not one that masks the defensive problems that Man United had in this game. We could talk about it, but we cannot be having defensive problems when we face Man City in 2 weeks or in 16 days, depending on the number. So September 14th, right? So we cannot be having defensive frailties in that situation, but it is what it is. Now, for bonus points, we're going to talk about Kobbie Mainoo. Coming back, he got a standing ovation. He was greeted at Old Trafford as he stepped back on the pitch. He didn't just add legs to the midfield, because I saw him make this darting run to defend, and he covered his bases. But also, he shifted Bruno further forward at some point, and him and Bruno were busy switching between that 10 and 6 position, but he was doing the job until Casemiro was subbed off. It actually directly impacted Man United's attacking flow, especially when Bruno moved a bit forward while he was playing as the 8 or 10, while Mainoo was playing as a 6 and covering the bases and screening. Amorim may have just found the balance that this side has been crying out for, even though Mainoo didn't have so much of a good game at Grimsby Town, but in this one he had a good game. At least he played 45 minutes, so I was pretty impressed, even though I've seen something from Fabrizio Romano saying that Kobbie Mainoo asked in the last 48 hours if he could go out on loan, and Man United did not sanction the move. So obviously that's probably through his intermediaries. So another bonus insight would probably be Ahmad growing influence. Like, yes, he had a horrible game against Grimsby Town, if we must say the truth, but his influence is growing. Like, we can see that he's making an impact in the team. We can see that him and Mbeumo are kind of having that connection and all of that. He might not have scored. He had a chance, oh God, a clear-cut chance, my God, that he missed. But obviously, what do we say? He was central to everything, winning the stoppage-time penalty, buzzing around defenders, testing Dubravka with shots, including Mbeumo doing the same as well. He's proving himself as more than just a squad option. He's an evolution under Ruben Amorim, and it's one of the brightest stories so far. I know many people say, oh, which player has Manchester United improved? Oh, which player has Ruben Amorim made better? Ahmad is one, obviously overlooked under Ten Hag, and then now he's showing that he's very versatile, can play multiple positions for Manchester United. So then number 3 bonus point is we're going to talk about is the mentality shift in this game. Most importantly, this is a mentality win. After the humiliation at Grimsby Town and the frustration at Fulham, it would have been easy for United to fold, when Burnley equalized. But instead of that, they kept pushing, they kept believing, and found a way. And that resilience, that refusal to settle for a draw, is something that the team desperately needed to show. So yeah, it's something. And another bonus insight I'm going to talk about is Benjamin Sesko. I think Benjamin Sesko still needs time to adapt, and I understand why Ruben Amorim would have basically allowed him to while Ruben Amorim would have allowed him to sit on the bench and then eventually give him time to embed himself into the team and all of that. But yeah, it's a mentality shift, one that the team needed, and Benjamin Sesko also, is getting there. 3 games featured from the bench. Hopefully, when he gets his start, he would turn up for Man United. So, as we head into the international break with 3 points finally on the board, Bruno's redemption, Mbeumo's rise, Ahmad's spark, and yes, defensive questions that still linger, for now, it is all about momentum. Going into the break and then eventually coming back from international break, being able to face the City derby, the Manchester derby coming up on the 14th of September. So a first win, a dramatic win, and maybe, just maybe, the start of something, steadier after a chaotic opening fortnight, basically. The break comes at the right time, and the next chapter of Amorim's United begins after the break, and that chapter comes with a very difficult game against Manchester City. So let me know your thoughts and feelings about the game. Let me know your thoughts and feelings about some of the positives that we talked about here. I mean, we could go on and on talking about a few more other positives, but for this one, let's just know your thoughts and feelings and we can build from there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I don't take it for granted. I'll see you on the next one. We are going to be tracking some of the transfers that we're seeing, obviously. But yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye and God bless.